Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Equine Episode Examination, where today we will be discussing Buckball season, this past weekend's new MOP episode. So, welcome to the show, everyone. If this is your first time joining us here for a Triple E episode, pretty much what we're just going to do is we're just going to go and discuss, pretty much give our thoughts, our initial opinions on the episode with everyone here in the call and everyone in the chat. And we're going to start a little more general before we then work our way to more specific items as we go through the conversation here. So if you are watching this on a recording, we do record this live here every day at CinemaQuestria at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time here on Tuesdays. So make sure to stop on by and join us and give us what you think about every episode every week. So we're pretty much every week with this, so make sure to stop on by and join us. I'm Rain Shadow, and I'm joined by a few people on the call if they want to go ahead and introduce themselves.
Well, don't everyone all speak up at once.
I'm Jay Smith, and are you ready for some Buckball?
I mean, I guess. I'm Matt the Shadow Man. You see, we're a bit more reserved with our sports here in the UK.
And I'm stuffing my face with pizza right at the moment. I'm Mr. Ben. How's it going, everyone?
I was just gonna say your name's not. I'm stuffing myself with pizza.
It's a great name.
That's a bit of a long. That's a bit of a long username.
Did they actually remember the sauce this time? That's the big question here.
I actually made this one myself. I wasn't so much made it, but actually I take that back. It wasn't so much made it myself, more so like bought it at the store and threw it in the oven.
But they didn't forget the sauce, right? That's the important key point to the pizza.
No. And this is actual fucking pizza this time. It's got actual freaking sauce on it.
Unless you were going...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Keep going, I'll reset.
Well, for people who are tuning into the chat or are checking this up on YouTube later, to put a little bit of
what we're saying.
To give a little bit of context on what the reason why I was going on is last night I had ordered a pizza. And I wound up accidentally ordering it at the wrong place. I normally order it down the street from where I'm at. And the thing is that I ordered the pizza, but I finally managed to get to it after some confusion. And it turns out that somehow they misinterpreted my request for extra sauce as no sauce at all. And I was more than a little salty when I realized that. Anywho,
it's an easy no sauce, extra sauce. It's a very easy thing to confuse.
Wouldn't have all the extra salt made it even drier than it was?
It certainly tasted very dry. Yes.
Maybe they just put so much sauce on it, it created some sort of anomaly, which just made the sauce disappear.
I feel like an anomaly. I haven't been on EE for ages.
Yes, welcome, Matt. Welcome back.
What do we do here? What do we talk about again?
Certainly not talk about not
best
usually
pony?
Pizza.
Best pony being best pony.
They thought you wanted a white pizza, Ben.
There's a racist comment in there.
I was just gonna say that's a very racist pizza, isn't it?
No, really, that's what they call a four-cheese pizza with no sauce, a white pizza.
Yeah, Alfredo sauce and everything. But anywho, getting back on topic here.
So, we were talking about MLP. I believe that's what we was talking about. So, what does everyone think about this past weekend's episode? Initial thoughts with Buckball season here. What?
I liked it. Well, I liked it. No, seriously. It's interesting that we have another episode where we see Applejack and Rainbow Dash's competitive tendencies, considering we only had that 4 episodes ago with the cart before the ponies. I suppose in that regard, you could say that this story is sort of perhaps makes one or the other kind of semi-redundant because we kind of see the same kind of thing. I mean, it's a different perspective in this regard, I think, and the moral is very slightly different. Well, very different actually. But anyway, this episode itself, I really enjoyed, and I think there was one main reason for this, and it's the reason I never thought I'd ever say ever. Snails was fantastic.
Yes, that was a surprise there.
I fucking love Snails this episode. He was just one of the best, if not the best in this particular episode here.
He don't give no fucks.
Yeah, I was kind of saving that for character, but I was going to say this is the first time, we've seen Snails at Covenant something, and at the same time they use his dim-wittedness to an advantage, since I don't think anything ever makes him not have the pressure, make him feel the pressure that Pinkie Pie and Fluttershy I did throughout the app.
I now demand a Snips episode where he's actually secretly a genius.
I think overall I thought it was a good episode. It was definitely compared to the kind of past 2 or 3 episodes, you can maybe say, maybe more than that. It's a lot simpler of an episode in terms of the stakes, what happens in it, because we had the Changeling episode, we had a Discord episode, and even the Cart Before the Ponies had a song in it. So this was a lot more of a simpler episode by this new writer. But I think she did really well. I thought it was a good episode, and can't tell if someone was laughing or if it was just someone was having some sort of panic attack. But
I have my fan on, so if
you don't say no more, Matt. No, please don't say any more.
It's not that fan. That fan is no longer working. It's just a bog standard typical desk.
Used
fan.
It too much.
Yes. Anyway, yes, episode. That's right. Yeah. The new writer, is it Jennifer Skelly? Is that right?
Yeah, Jennifer Skelly.
Yes, excellent. I actually had a quick look up to see what she did prior, and the only thing that kind of semi-recognizable is she worked on the Kung Fu Panda TV show. Other than that, most of the stuff I had never heard of that she'd worked on, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a lot of American kind of kids TV, like sort of PBS, public broadcasting. I think that was one of them, was a PBS show. So it's a lot of kids, like kids shows. Like when you think of a kids show, it's a lot more like that.
But that's, the thing is, though, just because that's her background doesn't necessarily mean she's going to be unsuitable for this show. I mean, come on, M.A. Larson's, was a lot of his stuff was like more actiony type shows.
I mean, he wrote for the great show known as Annoying Orange, so he was bound to be golden coming in, right?
Not just the Annoying Orange, but the TV show version.
That's what I meant.
The masterclass of amazing.
The good one.
He only did one episode though.
That's all he needed. He put his Larson touch on it.
He put it on a CV. Slap it down on there.
I mean, even like Nick Confalone and stuff. I know he had a lot when he was new writing last season. There was of course a lot of people coming in that didn't have high expectation based on some of his past works. But I definitely think he was one of the strongest writers we've had the past couple of seasons.
I don't think it should matter where a writer comes from.
Definitely not.
It's what they do on the show is what matters the most. And I seldom. I mean, if you actually look at her Twitter feed, which I sort of did, I mean, people were asking her questions, and she's as much of a fan as anyone. And people were asking her, "Have you seen Sonic Rainbow?" She's like, "Of course I've seen Sonic Rainbow. It's one of my favorite episodes of the first season." It's like
It's kind of funny because a lot of these new writers, like the I forget their names, but the ones that wrote the Changeling episode.
Is it the Fox brothers? Is it?
No, not the Fox brothers. The other writing duo.
Chris Wyatt.
Yeah, Chris Wyatt. So
the other guy.
I know they said something very similar on Twitter about how they were really excited to be writing for Pony. Like, this is kind of a cool thing that people are looking forward to and wanting to write for as well. Not just kind of a job like, oh, it's a job. Let me get some gets
But
some quick, but people are actually willing to buy
the people
right
that
for
have
it.
like come through Pony. I mean, all the people that were sort of a lot of the vast majority of people that were like in seasons 1 and 2 were vastly experienced animation writers. People like B.B. Keaton Rogers, Cindy
Doris
Morrow,
Closen.
And other people like that, and that these were people that had already got vast experience of very high quality TV shows, like a lot of the cartoons on Cartoon Network and that, which is obviously no real surprise considering Lauren Faust worked with a lot of these people as she worked on Cartoon Network, on Cartoon Network shows. So yeah. But obviously now, as those people have moved on to bigger and better things, some have moved on to Disney, some have moved on to filmmaking, some have made their published their own books and so on and so forth. People are now coming through Pony and seeing it as an actual real asset to their CVs to basically make it in the industry.
Yeah. So, just to kind of officially say, because we've already gone there, but what does everyone think about the story that was written for this episode? What is the story and the whole writing of it?
I think you pretty much nailed it down, saying it's a fairly simple story. I mean, there's nothing complex here. It's a very down to earth episode. It's a case of we see a tiny little bit more of what Equestria does. This is sport Buckball. It seems to be a relatively sort of new craze, but it's something that we see Ponyville will go up against Appaloosa. I mean, it's nice to see Bravern again, for example. Admittedly, we don't see a huge amount of him, which is, I think, a little bit of a shame. But yeah, it's a pretty simple story. I mean, basically, Applejack is, challenged, and then she's obviously looking for people to do it, and I don't know what's the biggest surprise, the fact that Fluttershy of all ponies and Pinkie Pie, which to be fair is less of a surprise, being really really good at the sport, kind of better than Rainbow Dash and Applejack, although to be fair, being better than Rainbow Dash in this makes a little sense, in the sense of she's as inexperienced as any of the other ponies. Applejack being like not as good as Pinkie Pie, that makes a little less sense, in the sense that Applejack knows the sport more. But then again, it's Pinkie Pie, which who Pinkie Pie basically has like the cheat codes to life anyway. So
Yeah,
but then we have Snails, of course, as well, which I don't know whose idea it was to have Snails in the episode, whether it was the writer herself, Jennifer, or whether it was Josh Haber, the head writer, or whoever. But it was an inspired choice, because it's nice to see some of these characters that we don't see a great deal of, or very much in the background, or they might like have one or two like funny lines and that's all you see from them. It's nice to see that. I really would like to see that much more often. I want a goddamn Celestia episode, damn it.
I have a picture on here somewhere. Here it is. Let me just toss this here in the chat room. Ta-da.
Kind of going back to what Tim was talking about there in terms of just the overall writing in the episode. Yeah, I guess you can kind of say it felt more kind of like a season 1, season 2 episode, just in the fact how it was more of a slice of life episode rather than like the Changeling episode, which is a lot more kind of grand and has a lot of overarching story plots to it. And of course, last week's episode, which is a Discord episode, which are always kind of stand out on their own, just based on the comedy nature of the Discord episodes. So it was a little bit more subdued, a lot like episodes we've had this season as well, like Applejack's Day Off, and there's a couple others that I can't remember right now. But there has been a lot of these little more simpler, kind of classic style, I guess you could call it, episodes that are more in line with the more traditional. Slice of life type of episodes that Pony has, of course, always been known to offer. Yeah, I mean, Tim pretty much puts it in like four bullet points there that kind of explain it really well. Slice of life, low stakes, personality heavy, character development kind of heavy, that kind of stuff.
But that's still, I mean, a lot of. I mean, you say that there's sort of higher stakes episodes in later seasons. There is, but I'd still say that these kind of slice of life episodes still kind of outweigh any other type of episode in the show. Not that that's a bad thing.
It's a little more 50-50 now, but I'm just more kind of comparing it to the early seasons, especially season 1, where these episodes were pretty much the overwhelming majority, maybe with the exception of the 2-part opener of season 1. And maybe 1 or 2 episodes in between. We're now we get a little bit more of a balance between these kind of episodes, more episodes that are very heavy on continuity kind of story, driving continuity forward, with either character plot lines or season-long plot lines, or episodes which are very action-oriented, like I don't know, like the Spike episode. Even though they did have a lot of character building going on as well, it was a lot more kind of an action story. Compared to this kind of episode, where really it was a little slower paced and a lot more character development.
Yeah, I mean, this episode wouldn't have looked out of place in season 1 or 2. I will agree with that.
Yeah, well, and we'll get to it, but with the exception of some of how the characters acted, yeah, writing wise, it wouldn't have looked out of place.
Well, to be fair, the way the characters end up acting is sort of semi-related to the writing. I mean, yeah, this is an episode that I say in terms of tone wouldn't be out of place, but like you say, with how the characters have moved on since that point, yeah, I would agree that this is an episode that wouldn't have been able to happen until at least after season 2, maybe even slightly later.
Yeah. Radio Dog, we'll get to that in the character discussion, because that's a funny thing. I find that whole thing hilarious. One thing I really did like about this episode was the sport itself, Buckball. I like how it was. Well, first I liked how we actually get to see it and get a nice little in depth of what it is, how it works, and see them playing it for a lot of the episode. So if you were not a fan of Equestria games, here you go. You got your little kind of sports episode here. But I really liked how it really did bring together all of the different races of ponies. So the unicorns, the earth ponies, and the Pegasus each have their own kind of part to play, like their own separate part to play based on their abilities. So each of the 3 members of the team is specifically tailored to be an earth pony, a Pegasus, or a unicorn.
I also do have to like the fact that this particular sport here is something that was specifically said, even by Applejack, that this was more of a family game that was developed between the members of the Apple family. This wasn't like a...
Isn't everything?
Yeah. This wasn't like a true sport that was... introduced in equestrian sports proper. This was just something that was apparently just between family members that just sort of kind of grew to ballooned out to become something huge.
And it's even made a point throughout the episode that the sport really isn't that big of a sport. It's not like basketball or football in our society. Pinkie Pie and Fluttershy make it a point in the episode talking about how, really no one knows about the sport in Ponyville. We didn't know about it. Rainbow Dash didn't know about it. So yeah, it is that really kind of family sport. The only reason why Ponyville got so excited is because AJ and Dash kind of pumped them up. But yeah, I mean, that just speaks to your point of how it is more of a kind of that family developed sport.
But yeah, as Technotron just mentioned, I was also going to mention that I also did like how it was more of a fantastical sport, like something kind of similar to Harry Potter's Quidditch, where we didn't actually have anything like a standard sport like kickball or softball or basketball, because I mean, whenever we have like a sports episode in pretty much any medium, it's almost always regarding either basketball, baseball, soccer, or actual football as the rest of the world would know it, or American football. And I mean, those episodes are like a dime a dozen. And I mean, like, how many episodes have we seen something like that? I mean, the only other sports outside of those that are any sort of popular are like hockey and maybe even tennis. And again, I mean,
Yeah. I mean, I think the closest this sport kind of reminds me of, and it's funny how it sort of the eureka moment was when I read someone else's review from Derpy News. I read the review there, and he actually mentioned that it was kind of like netball. And yeah, it does kind of remind me of netball in a way, because everyone has a role in netball, and basically you have to stick to that role, and you have to then work as a team in those roles to obviously win the game.
I like how it kind of throws a little twist on a lot of sports. You know, how we were talking about it is its own sport that they created. But, you know, you have, one player which is kind of being the offense and kicking the ball. And then you have another player that's, on the other team that's defending their goal. But then it kind of throws the curveball in where you have another player, the unicorn, actually moving the goal around. So it isn't just a static goal that you're defending against. The defender is both trying to block the offensive, but also trying to follow and defend the moving goal, almost like a one-on-one matchup in American football, or when you're trying to throw a pass to your teammate. So I like that kind of cooperation where you don't see many sports like that where the goal is not static, where the goal is moving from one of the other players.
I just kind of have this mental image now of like a football that has a soccer game, where we actually have like members of the one team actually going to the opposite end and just like literally lifting up the goal and just running back and forth with
Yeah, I mean,
I look forward to reading the book, the Zen of Snails. Right. The Tao of Snails. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a lot of the Quidditch comparisons. I guess sort of, but really the part that's similar to Quidditch is the part that's similar to a lot of other sports. Quidditch doesn't have the moving goals in it either. It's just you have one person throwing the Quidditch ball and the other one defending the goal. But that's like that in a lot of sports. That's no different than soccer, except in this case the goal is in the air rather than on the ground. Which is, again, a nice play between each of the pony races, because you got the offense, which is on the ground, but they got to kick into the goal, which is held up by magic in the air and defended by a flying Pegasus. So it's a nice kind of system for the sport. And the snitch.
And the snitch, yeah, I forgot about that, yeah. But my main point is that, as I was trying to say, was that I'm just liking the fact that we have a sport that's, like I said, not really anything of this particular earth. I mean, it's a unique game that's exclusive to the setting and the rules and variations, and adherent to the physics they're in.
You've got to love the golden snitch, catch it and you win, so the rest of the game is almost pointless.
Yeah.
It's a bit like when they had golden goals in extra time in football or soccer, and all that did was make everyone really, really nervous in that bit, and so you had nothing really happen in extra time and just went to penalties anyway.
I've never heard of that before.
Rid of that.
Yeah, I wonder why.
You've never heard of golden goal?
I've never heard of golden goals.
They changed it to silver goal after a while as well, where it was like next goal wins, but only after extra time finished. But they also got rid of that as well because, like I say, it was just like all it was doing was making the matches so twitchy and nervous. Hardly any matches were ever won on a golden goal or even a silver goal.
Huh. So is that only like an overtime thing? Like if the game's tied?
If it went.
Okay, that makes more sense. I thought this was just some random golden goal that it's always there during the game or something. I'm like,
no. They did it for extra time.
Okay, that makes a little more sense to me then. Okay.
I believe that's called sudden death.
Yeah, it sort of tried to do that, but all it did was just make it really twitchy and nervous, and they just gone back to traditional 15 minutes and a half extra time. Most of the time, it ends up going to penalties anyway. So,
yeah, well, that's sports for you.
Sports. Sorry, every time I hear sports, I just hear JonTron saying that in that voice.
Balls.
amazingly enough from the Barbie episode that he did.
It makes sense, I guess.
Hey, going back to Pony, you know, Barbie is voiced by the same person that voices Starlight Glimmer, so, you know, everything relates to Pony, everything, ever.
Yes. One of the other things I enjoyed about this story, the story in this episode when I was rewatching it today, is I really do think it was really well paced. It didn't try to do too much at once or spread itself too thin throughout it. Each of the acts kind of has its own little part. We get introduced to the sport right away in the cold open of the episode. Then the next one is all about finding the right people, and eventually they find out that Fluttershy and Pinkie Pie are really good at it, and they find snails. The second act is all about getting them training and about showing Rainbow Dash and Applejack, you know, kind of overexerting the other two and training them in the wrong way, to the point where at the end of that act they pretty much are just don't want to do it anymore. And then the third act nicely resolves all that, makes them realize their mistakes, get that last bit of emotion, or not the word I'm looking for, the last bit of courage that they need to go in and then finally win the game in the end. It was all really nicely paced throughout it. No part felt like it was went too quick or went too slow. At least how I was viewing it. I was gonna get to that, I think, in the character discussion about, or maybe I.
Truth be,
I'm gonna answer that question with rarity. It's the fact that this episode only had 4 voice actors. Yes, only 4. I can't think of an episode probably since, I don't know, season 1 probably, that has so few voice actors in an episode. It's very unusual. I mean, it certainly helps that 4 of the characters are shared with two voice actors. So we basically had
Andrea Lemon and Ashley Ball.
Andrea Lemon versus Ashley Ball. Basically, that's basically what this episode was. It was just.
You're taking the one thing to talk about in the voice actor section.
Sorry. Hey, you should know what I'm like now. I don't play by your rules, Sonny.
Well,
I make my own rules up. I'm like
gonna kick you out of the room.
I'm like the Who sign is anyway of Triple E. Points don't matter. Not that there were ever any points.
I will say, in reference of Rarity and Twilight and Starlight, for that matter, it makes sense that they wouldn't go to them. They weren't really fit. We know, especially with Twilight and Rarity from the past couple however many 6 seasons, how not cool they are under pressure compared to Snails, who is so cool under all the pressure for the episode, like the real star. It makes sense that they wouldn't go to them or Starlight. Just I can't imagine them being, they're very talented magically, but being cool under pressure isn't really one of their strong suits.
I know this is, I don't know if there's much more we can really talk about in terms of writing, but I just love how all the characters, all the characters were written. It just, everything felt very, very natural. The dialogue felt very, very natural most of the time. I mean, there are certain things where you see characters acting not like how they normally would, but that's because of factors that we'll obviously talk about later on, that in that context makes a lot of sense. And I think that's the thing that really surprises me with this episode. Is it's a brand new writer, but honestly, you could have put any writer that's been on the show, for a reasonable amount of time, and you wouldn't have been that shocked it had been written by them. And that's a real testament to I think Josh Haber gets more flack than he really deserves. I think he's done a really solid job, considering he was, he sort of did a season, and then effectively almost after that season was done, he was pretty much like jumped in to be basically made head writer. That's quite a bit of pressure to be thrown on you, but they obviously felt they had a really good, level-headed writer and someone that can really manage the, how the show moves forward. Obviously with Megan McCarthy obviously having to sort of, basically hand the reins off to obviously she originally handed it off to M.A. Larson, and obviously M.A. Larson then left to do his own thing. But obviously Megan, really entrusted Josh with sort of, being head writer for the show, and he sort of really repaid that, I think, with great dividends with this season. It's been a very, very solidly written season. I don't see much. I mean, if you go back and watch some of the season 1 episodes, particularly funnily enough, the Chris Savino written episodes, you'll notice how some of the dialogue does feel kind of stilted and wooden. You don't get that anymore. That just doesn't happen in the show anymore. And I think that's just a real sort of, a sort of real showing of how evolved the show has become. And
one thing you really have to look at in respects to that is the number of new writers that are on the season. Like, literally, the vast majority of episodes this season were written by new writers for this season, and the rest were new writers last season.
I think the only real super experienced writer we've had for this season is Dave Polsky. And honestly, truthfully, I think he's written one of the sort of lesser episodes of the season. I'm not saying it was a bad episode by any means, but I think it's sort of one of the less memorable ones.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's fascinating how the newer writers are really sort of hitting it the ground running and doing a really good job.
We've had 4 or 5 new, counting the kind of the writing partners was 1 new writers this season so far. Yeah. And then there's a couple more that just came on last season as well, like Joanne and Christine just came on last season, and they've written a couple this season as well. Really, the only returning ones we've had, off the top of my head, are Haber, who's only written the opener, as well as story edited, obviously. Nick Conflon, who's done 3 episodes, and Dave Polsky, who's done 1. Everyone else, even Mike Vogel, even though he's been with the series for the entire series, he's a brand new writer, coming in this season.
I mean, we've got Ed Valentine, I believe, next week, and obviously he has some experience with the show. But
well, he also wrote Purple for the Ponies.
Most of these people have not written. Most of these people, other than Dave Polsey, were not writers before season 4 of the show.
Even Haber came on season 4, so.
Exactly. It's kind of amazing, really. I mean, I think that's a testament to, obviously, the new writers and how well they do. But I think it's also a testament to Megan McCarthy, because she's obviously delegated this out, because obviously she's head of storytelling for Hasbro brands. And obviously she's picked these people out because she feels that they are the best people to do the job. And, hey, you can't really, say that her judgment has been particularly poor now, can you?
I mean, she really did exactly kind of what Lauren Faust did in the beginning of the show as well. Is really went and found and helped pick out really the right people to run the show. Even without him, just like Lauren left after season 1, she picked out the right people to help the show keep going forward, even after even without her. And Megan's kind of done the same thing, as she's moved on to doing the movie, and Jason's moved on to doing the movie and doing other stuff for Hasbro's brands. Just having that team go forward and together. And I'm really happy that they've introduced so many new writers this season. Not just because they've been good, but just because it offers a new perspective, and I'm glad to see them going forward, introducing new writers for the show, just like in season 4, where we have all these veteran writers now that just came on in season 4. So having this almost new generation. And yeah, there's a lot of risk involved with new people writing, but it can offer the benefits of having a new writer with a fresh perspective or a new idea or a new style can really help in a show that's been going on as long as MLP has now.
I think the main issue people have with I think it's a fear with new writers, that they feel that writer may not necessarily get the show. Yeah. And I can see the fear, but how very often does this show really let you down when they've had a new writer?
I mean, there is a lot of legitimate, worries and issues, especially with a 6-season-long show, that the person might not understand the characters well, or the story, or might not be as well versed.
There's a lot of lore now, which I can't believe I'm saying this. MLP has lots of lore that you need to read up on, bitch.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of really, there's a lot of issues that could happen with having a new writer come in, but I think we've been really lucky to have like people like Megan McCarthy, Josh Haber, and M.A. Larson story editing the past few seasons, because I think especially Haber this season has really brought the writers up to speed, and they all seem like this isn't their first season that they're writing on it in a lot of ways. So a lot of that credit has to be going to the story editor.
People were fans to begin with. I mean, Jennifer, she flat out said she was a fan of the show. So it's I think it's, and that, sometimes you can say that being overtly too much of a fan can be too much the other way, and you could end up with basically fan fiction up on the screen, and I don't think that's happened ever with the show. I don't think even some of the weakest written episodes of the show, I don't think I've ever felt like fan fiction to me at all. And I think that is a really, obviously the longer the show goes on, the higher the chance of that happening increases. I mean, look at The Simpsons. I mean, that is basically a pastiche of itself now. But obviously the real advantage of the show is that it still evolves. It may not evolve super quickly or like really fast, or sometimes people say it's not fast enough, and then sometimes people say it's way too fast. But I think there's a good balance overall of like how the characters move on. But the fact that the characters do move on and change, I mean, look at Fluttershy in this episode. Would she have acted even half as assertively in this episode than she would have done in a season 1 episode, or even early season 2 episodes?
I think, just real quick, I think Draconius Media in the chat brings up brings up a good point in terms of both with new writers and even just episodes written by veteran writers. Is sometimes, especially a new writer, they might make a mistake, and I see people latching on to mistakes so much. Like it might be a mistake that is there. It's a mistake. It's a problem. But it doesn't necessarily ruin the episode as a whole. But there's so many people that when they're looking, so they just latch onto the mistake. And if there's just one little problem with it like that, with the episode, the entire episode is the worst episode ever. 0 out of 10. Horrible.
Philly Vanilla. That's all the 2 words you need.
Yeah, exactly. That's a perfect example. And that's written by freaking Amy Keating Rogers, too. And it's funny, that episode coming off of Pinkie Pride, which is everyone was like, oh, that's so good. It's the best episode ever. And then, you have that episode, oh, this writer is horrible. It's just like,
she doesn't understand Pinkie Pie. It's like,
didn't she just write that Pinkie Pie episode?
Wrote like Pinkie Pie, and it's like, this isn't like completely out of the realms of possibility for Pinkie. Just because she has like the third, being able to break the 4th wall doesn't mean that she's gonna instantly be able to like keep everyone's feeling, necessarily have the right thing to say at the right time all the time. It's I like to have a bit of weakness to my character. I've never considered Pinkie Pie to be a Mary Sue. Let's just say that.
That's the funny part, is when on one hand you got Mary Sue problems, but on the other hand, oh my god, the character made a mistake or they're in the wrong. Worst episode.
Isn't that the whole idea of this show? That
no.
That there are challenges to overcome, that we as they as ponies and we as people always make mistakes and we should learn from them? Or is that too much of a thing? I mean, it seems to be the internet now is just a case of pointing out the mistakes and then just basically bashing them over the head with it until they basically either run off the internet or basically till they die.
Either or. Kind of getting off of the tangents. I think one of the things I really did like about this episode was the second the second half of the episode and the conclusion. I really like what they did with both Fluttershy and Pinkie Pie, as well as Applejack and Rainbow Dash in that whole scene. First having Fluttershy and Pinkie Pie kind of standing up for themselves and telling, pretty much their feelings to Rainbow Dash and Applejack and quitting the team because of it. And then after that, having Applejack and Rainbow Dash realize their mistakes and kind of realizing the problem and fix it. I really liked how that was written. The episode could have easily gone to the point where we didn't have that scene and we just get to the game and they lose and they suck, and in the end it's it's the truth comes out in the end kind of thing. But I like that didn't happen, and they did stand up and they did stick up for themselves and speak up against their friends and kind of how they were feeling, and even go farther than that and come back in the end and still win after Applejack and Rainbow Dash realized their mistake and pushed them forward again in their motivation the correct way this time.
I think it's fascinating that Jennifer decided to make when they first go in the train carriage to basically say to them, look, we're not feeling up for this because the pressure's too much and that. Pinkie Pie is the one that first tries to say that. And I understand that. I don't think Fluttershy would be the one to force it on. But when Pinkie Pie sort of struggles to get the words out, it's interesting to see how much Fluttershy just basically, drops the pretense and just basically goes balls to the wall saying, look, I am not doing this because I do not feel up to it. and she would have never ever have done that before until say season 3 or 4, and I think that is one of the real things, and it's funny to think that if that had happened in season 1, people would have said it was out of character. But it's interesting that the very sort of the idea that you can see that Fluttershy can let rip, as it were, kind of first happened in the season 1 finale. When she basically couldn't, basically get on with the animals, she basically loses her shit, basically.
And going past that part, to Rainbow Dash and Applejack, I like where Jennifer went with the episode from there, because it could have easily been they realized their mistake, they're sorry they pushed them so hard. Hey, we got this. We'll take this. We'll go and play the match for you, and we could leave the lesson at that. But instead of that, they have Rainbow Dash and Applejack come up with this plan where, we're going to take your. They say they're going to take the spot, and we just need your help training. And they go really. Rainbow Dash and Applejack go out of their way to give Fluttershy and Pinkie Pie their confidence back, and actually go and compete and win in the match in the end. And it makes that win seem so much better. Like the entire team, especially Fluttershy and Pinkie Pie, really deserved to win in the end because of all that they went through and the training they went and everything that they had to do to get to that point. It really made that win seem so much better in the end, whereas if they didn't go that route with the story, it wouldn't have felt that whole. It wouldn't have seemed like they had grown as much as characters or had learned as much as they did. So we've kind of gone to the characters now. Anything else for the story before I guess officially move the slide up?
Wait, we already covered characters? Huh.
What was that?
I said we already covered characters?
No, I'm saying, but we kind of sort of started getting into characters a little bit, but I haven't actually moved the slide over to character discussion. So I was just trying to see if anyone had any more story points before we officially move on.
I don't.
Okay. Oops. Okay, well, I guess officially, let's move on to the character discussion. How about we all talk about that number one character that everyone loved in this episode that was so good, Little Strongheart. That was such a great character in this episode. That was totally in the episode.
I love how nobody actually. The funny thing is, though, because I believe this episode was aired early at some events. I can't remember what the name of the event was, and so basically people were. I'm guessing people were told to not spoil the episode, and people were like tweeting out saying, "Oh, there's a character, a long-term character we haven't seen for a while that gets a really good role," and everyone seemed to think that it was Little Strongheart, which is kind of odd because, like, literally sort of around that time, IDW released a Friends Forever comic with is it Rainbow Dash and Little Strongheart as the main characters, and usually if IDW are doing something with a character, it's kind of a slight given that they're not actually going to be in the show, at least not for quite a while. So I was kind of not shocked that Little Strongheart was, but seems like everyone else kind of was.
It was kind of like, well, first off, the thing that happened to Alamo Drafthouse, by that own blogger's own writing, she was pretty much the only brony there. Everyone else was very much target demographic, not going to go on Twitter and spoil things to begin with. So kudos to them for not spoiling anything. It's been a week since I've read that article. I can't remember exactly what they said. They were very, very, very vague. I'm not even entirely sure that they watched this episode, because they did specifically say the only thing that they really said about the episode was there is a character returning that we haven't seen in a while and a lot of people will like. I didn't really see any characters in this episode returning.
I believe it was this episode that was shown there. That I do know, but yeah.
I mean, do we know that for a fact? Because I don't remember anything that they said anything about it besides.
As far as I'm aware, from places I've seen, this was the episode that was shown. I can't see why they would show an episode much further in advance than this. Because
I mean, it was just a preview.
The episodes are made to a very sort of quite a tight deadline still. That some of the animation for like the later on in the season is still being done when they're releasing the earlier episodes.
I will say this: keep in mind the episode premiering this week was the episode that was supposed to show at the beginning of the season. So that episode has been done for a while. But I guess
probably the only one that's kind of sort of out of sync to how everything else is.
But I think going forward about maybe 3 weeks, I think most of the episodes are probably at the point where they could show them at least a couple, maybe 2-3 weeks out. But my point is, I'm not even entirely sure that this is the episode they saw, because I as far as I remember, the only thing they said was it's an upcoming episode, and they made the comment about the character. But the point, and then of course the point is, the Little Strongheart thing came out of, I don't even know where that came out of. It kind of, I can see where people are going kind of hypothetically in their heads saying, oh, we know Appaloosa is involved from the synopsis, so it would make sense that, Little Strongheart could possibly do that. But people were so sure of it, like it was shown in a trailer or something, and it came absolutely nowhere. The one person that went to the draft house didn't say that. And so it's so funny seeing all these people being so butthurt about Little Strongheart not being in the episode, where absolutely nothing had pointed to that.
The funny thing to me was they were butthurt about Little Strongheart not being in here, but not celebrating the fact that Snails had got possibly easily by a million, head, shoulders, knees, and elbows above anything else he'd ever had, because literally his only real role in the show was to basically be a figure of fun. Basically, I mean, the only major appearance they had prior to this was Magic Doll, and basically they were just Trixie's lackeys in that, basically.
For performing really bad up in Rainbow Rocks.
Yeah.
God.
So
what do you mean really bad? It was amazing. So
yeah, let's go ahead and let's discuss nice segue right into Snails there and his character and his representation in this episode.
Well, I kind of already touched it sort of when we were going over our initial thoughts. Like I said earlier, I think they actually took one of Snails' trait, that he's kind of a dib character, and actually gave it as an advantage to the overall moral of the story, because he basically tells Pinky and Fluttershy that since he never thinks about anything, or that puts him at the advantage of not feeling the same pressure that Fluttershy and Pinky are, and he tells him not to worry about it.
See, going back, it wouldn't be Brayburn, because Brayburn we literally just saw last season. It wouldn't have been Brayburn.
Yeah, because it was someone that had not been seen for. The thing is, though, Snails is. I mean, he was seen.
Maybe it was Snails. Maybe.
But the thing is, Snails was seen only for like one line, I think.
Yeah.
In an earlier episode this season, I think it was the one.
Far before the ponies.
Yeah, they were in that.
Yeah.
And,
at least in the background, yeah.
I mean, they only had like say one line or something, but they were there.
Yeah.
I think the interesting thing with Snails is that he's kind of sort of a blank slate kind of character, in the sense of, he's dim, and that's basically all we kind of know about.
That's his character.
We don't know anything
he's slow.
about him. I mean, it's interesting to think that that and they sort of say that he's kind of skillful with his magic when it comes to sort of with buckets and that. It's people can say, well, because he's a blank slate, it's a good thing, because it means that they can draw on him for a story and use him as the character. 'Cause, some people have been saying in the chat, why didn't they use Rarity in this case? But one, I don't think it would be really Rarity's kind of thing to be doing in the first place, and second of all, she's running a business. I don't think she'd really have the time to do it. And Twilight is an even easier one. She's an alicorn now.
Say that was why I was joking around earlier, because I always joke about how like we never see Starlight in these episodes as it is, and I couldn't help but just go for the subversive. Where's Rarity on this one? But I know that pretty much the same way that Rarity she would probably be interested in coming to watch, but I really wouldn't think she would be caught dead even trying to try out, let alone actually actively participating. Equestria Girls and friendship games notwithstanding.
Yeah, and like I mentioned earlier, with all three of them, Starlight, Twilight, and Rarity, that both Applejack and Rainbow Dash know, especially for Rarity and Twilight, just based on the past 6 seasons, how they can be under pressure, and sometimes, and of course Twilight's an alicorn, Rarity isn't really a sports person, so it would make sense that they wouldn't go to them for this, and then rather try and find someone else. And in the end, Snails really just was the perfect person, just in terms of his coolness, both just to help in his position, but then to also help Fluttershy and Pinkie Pie in the end, and kind of teach them and exert some of that coolness and that he has, and his ability to work under that pressure and just shove it aside was really beneficial to them in the end.
I can sort of totally see Snails being some sort of like yoga instructor or something, or some kind of like what's that martial art that's sort of all sort of slow.
The Zen master?
Well, not Zen. It's what's the name of it? It's on the tip of my tongue. But yeah, it that sort of thing, where it's sort of where it's sort of calm and doesn't require you have to like do a lot of thinking. It's just sort of being sort of zoned out, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, pretty much some meditator.
Yeah, meditation.
Someone who can meditate.
Yeah, like that. Yeah.
I did actually heard. Speaking of Zen, I did hear. Not really here, but I did see some references to portraying Snails as Zenyatta from Overwatch, particularly after that scene where we actually saw him levitating the ring of baskets around him. I mean, I'm getting more mental images of Yoda specifically myself. Just more Snails is a freaking Jedi Knight. But
he has the calmness.
Yoda if he was really, really dim.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just did really love seeing another side of his character than kind of just the dim, slow nature that we've seen mostly as a joke or some sort of plot thing, like in Magic Duel or the first Equestria Girls movie with Sunset. So it was nice seeing more of a character and kind of having him be the most grounded character of all of them throughout the entire episode.
It was just nice to see him not be the butt of jokes.
And I loved how they actually made him likable without actually changing his character.
Yeah.
Not that he really had a lot of character to begin with, to be fair. Just being
true.
It's not really a character as such. It's sort of a trait.
He got spikified.
I mean, we've not seen enough of him to get really much beyond that. But it's like I agree with you that they didn't really change him as such, as from what we'd seen. He's still as he seems exactly how you would expect him to be. It's just they use that as an advantage for the story.
Exactly. I mean, he really was. And again, going back to what Matt said earlier, just, kudos if it was, Jennifer. It was probably Jennifer, or if it was something that either Josh Haber or someone else in the notes suggested. But just having, I have to imagine it's Jennifer, because it kind of bases the entire episode around him being in it. But he was just such the perfect choice to be in that position, and for so many ways, and have the additional benefit of giving him some more character. So really, just kudos to them for picking him and using him, because it worked out so well.
Who is Snails' voice actor? I keep forgetting his name. Is it
Richard Cox.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he does a fantastic job with his lines in this episode as well. I mean, he still doesn't have a huge amount of lines, but it's enough to make you, it wasn't a case of me just rooting for Pinky and Fluttershy. I was rooting for Snails too.
Mostly Fluttershy.
Maybe. Maybe. But no, seriously, in terms of the actual story, it made you root as much for Snails as it did for the others.
Yeah. Anything else for Snails that people want to discuss?
Why was he taking that water in the first place? What was he using it for?
I'm sorry.
Maybe having to carry the water somewhere for somebody. I don't know.
I believe he did mention that he was delivering it. I believe that was in the actual script, but I just had the mental image that maybe like Snails was just like casually going to put out some burning fire.
I like how of all the ponies that you could have deliver something in Ponyville, you're gonna give it to Snails. It's just,
well, hey, the postmayor in Ponyville is Derpy, so
Yeah, I mean, they're just as competent as the U.S. postal system, so I guess that works out. One of my, I think, the coolest bits, character-wise, in this episode, in addition to Snails, is the growth that we kind of subtly see, not in this episode, but just kind of the growth from past episodes that we see in Applejack and Rainbow Dash in this episode. And I'm really focusing on how they gave up their positions to Pinkie Pie and Fluttershy. I mean, here we have two characters that or either have just humongous egos, mainly Rainbow Dash, or who are extremely stubborn, like Applejack. And they didn't really even bat an eye in giving up their positions on the team to Fluttershy and Pinkie Pie once they saw their talent, which is really an especially big deal for Rainbow Dash, who in past seasons I just couldn't even see her doing something like that, even if she saw talent in them. So it's nice seeing both of them notice someone else as maybe better than them at something, and giving them a chance to, and the encouragement, more importantly, to for their performance, and giving them a chance to do all that. And it was really nice seeing them as characters doing that for their friends.
I wonder if the turning point for Rainbow Dash in that is basically sort of becoming like a mentor / big sister to Scootaloo.
It could be, yeah.
It doing something like that, she sort of realised that, I can see something here in Scootaloo that's sort of, similar to myself in a way, but she has perhaps slightly more things to overcome than I do, because, obviously it's not like massively drawn on yet so far, but we kind of know that Scootaloo has got sort of underdeveloped wings, and it's something that she sort of, even despite that, she still has many talents, and I think that that's something that obviously Rainbow Dash sees, but she sees sort of something in her that she sees in herself.
And Tim brings up a good point also about this season's Wonderbolts episode as well, because one of the things we discussed about when we were discussing that episode was Rainbow Dash really doesn't have to feel like she has to prove herself anymore. She's accomplished one of her goals. She's a member of the Wonderbolts. So that also must have something to do with it, in terms of her character, where she doesn't feel the need to have to be the center of attention there and to prove herself. She already has, and she already has that self-confidence. So she's able to give up that position to someone else and encourage and offer encouragement to them in it.
Sort of a case of once you've reached the summit, there's no need to be cocky anymore.
Yep. And that's a pretty big development for Rainbow Dash. She has the biggest cocks.
Cock.
And by that I'm talking about Scootaloo, obviously. So
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone loves everyone's favorite chicken. Sort of speaking about the I mean, it's kind of it's sort of a mirror image, but it's the development of obviously Applejack and Rainbow Dash is kind of reflected with how Pinkie and in particular Fluttershy have sort of moved on. I mean, Pinkie Pie, she's very kind of, I wouldn't say she was kind of carefree. She obviously really shows that she cares, but she's kind of, you know, she's a pony that enjoys having fun. I mean, we've known that from, you know, the fun episode that was obviously Too Many Pinkie Pies, but I think she kind of realizes, but it's kind of that she works best when she is having fun. She if she's under pressure or under too much pressure, or if she's, you know, doing something that's, you know, scary or you know, she's nowhere near at her best, and she's, you know, she finds it difficult. But I think she's always found it fairly easy to sort of express that. It's kind of interesting that she sort of is a little bit more reserved here. I think it shows that she does have, you know, she does care. She doesn't want to let you know, the others down, and I think, you know, she feels, you know, kind of, you know, caught in a difficult position. Now with Fluttershy though, is she makes no bones about that she is not happy, and that's a real step forward for Fluttershy, because normally she would just, you know, hide away. But then again, to be fair, if this was like early season one Fluttershy, she would have never even appeared at the tryouts. So, you know.
I could not have timed that better with what I posted like right after Draconicus media.
But it's the other thing I was just going to say about Fluttershy is it's the facial expression she had in this episode. She can legitimately get angry, and she will not, you know, they, you know, some people can say it's the quiet ones that can end up being sort of the most ones that you don't want to upset, but you really don't want to upset Fluttershy, and it's kind of sort of shows to me. I wonder if she has to get sort of this kind of riled up sometimes with Discord. Yeah. You know, having Discord as your roomie.
Well, we've seen her be a lot more assertive this season, in at least 2 episodes so far, with her brother and with Discord last week.
Yeah, I mean, having a brother like that, I can see why she would want to put her hoof down.
I will say that I know a lot of people kind of see that whole scene of her being kind of over the top, comically angry, when she bursts out in that scene, but I actually kind of see her as more of herself and not so much anger. It's pretty much at this point in the episode she's really down on herself right now and her abilities because of the kind of the failed training that Applejack and Rainbow Dash has.
She's not the most confident of ponies at the best of times. Exactly.
And so she's extremely scared right now about failure and about more specifically failing Ponyville. And like Matt said, that's something that obviously with her, with being how sensitive she is.
I think she's scared of failing her friends.
Yeah. And this is very much Fluttershy's character. And I don't really see the outburst as much of her being angry, but it's her just having a ton of fear and just letting out a lot of fear and emotion. So it's
do you know who she's angry with? She's not angry with Applejack and Rainbow Dash at that time. She's angry with herself.
Yeah, exactly.
She's angry that she's let them down, and that she feels that the only way that she can do that is to basically get out of it. And that, you know, that is a very Fluttershy thing to do. Yeah. So she will run away from a fight if she has to.
And so that's kind of my point, where it's not like she's being out of character because she's being just angry, and we never see Fluttershy angry. But it's really more about her being scared and her being emotional. Yeah, but it's not even that. It's her being very emotional and being very scared and being very down on herself. But the one thing that has changed is it's nice being able to see her being able to. express this more directly to her friends now. Whereas in earlier seasons, usually she would just kind of quietly go along with something she didn't like. Usually after kind of being
in the background.
Yeah, or usually after kind of being guilt tripped by her friends, she would eventually just kind of go along with it. But here we actually see her expressing that fear and her feelings and her opinion on it, which is some nice character development for her.
Because it's interesting that Pinkie Pie is the one that, you know, it's not a surprise that she's the one that first starts to sort of say, you know, yeah, this is not working, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But she sort of struggles to really get it out, whereas, you know, once Fluttershy sees that Pinkie's struggling to say it, she just basically tells them how it is. I mean,
she knows from experience. Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting to think that you think, though, that when Fluttershy is doing her own thing, what is she doing? She's looking after animals. I'm talking about before, obviously, Discord became into the picture. She was looking after her animal friends. Now, I'm sure some of these animals are very difficult to look after, and I'm sure she probably got upset with them sometimes. It's not beyond the realms of possibility.
Angel.
Well, not just Angel. I'm talking about any animals, but yeah, Angel was
but mainly Angel.
pretty certain. Yeah. But yeah, and you think to yourself, she is probably one of those people that she will try and let things ride over her because she doesn't want to upset the apple cart. She doesn't like upsetting people. She doesn't like doing that. She's not a confrontational pony, you know, normally. To the point that it was actually a detriment to her because she was not standing up for herself. Now, obviously, that has changed as time has moved on, and this is kind of the culmination of that. It's basically her sticking up not only for herself but also for Pinkie Pie as well, and basically saying, "Look, we feel that under the pressure that we're under, we can't do this."
And like you said earlier, at no point is she accusing Rainbow Dash or Applejack of doing anything. And it takes actually Rainbow Dash and Applejack to kind of figure out what happened and why Pinkie Pie and Fluttershy are feeling that. They have to figure that out on their own. But this is just Fluttershy just expressing that we personally, we can't do this. We feel that we can't do this. Not because of anything you've done. We just feel that we personally can't.
I mean, it is because of what they've done, but they don't...
But they don't see it like that.
No. I think they... To be fair, the way that Applejack and Rainbow Dash act, I mean, to be fair, is not... it probably wouldn't seem unusual to Pinkie or Fluttershy. I think it's a case that it's something that has to be realised by... you know, because I think that it's telling that Rainbow Dash basically sort of says, yeah, this is something that they wouldn't enjoy. It's not the way they would get the best out of themselves, sort of thing. It doesn't sound. I think that the words were, it doesn't sound like Pinkie Pie or Fluttershy, and it's not. I mean, Pinkie is obviously, you know, someone that wants to have fun, and Fluttershy is... It's interesting that it's similar for her here. She finds the sport fun, but it's also the fact that I think it gives her confidence as well. I mean, she's enjoying it, but she's enjoying it because she's actually good at it. I mean, it's... Who would have... Let me say this. Who would have thought you could say that Fluttershy is better at a sport than Rainbow Dash? I mean, it's you know, because when we see them obviously doing the sort of, you know, the quote unquote practice for them before once they actually get to Appaloosa, you know, basically they get their asses kicked, Rainbow Dash and Applejack. Yeah. There's no other way around it. They get completely smashed once Pinkie Pie and Fluttershy get their confidence back up, and it's kind of that, you know, it's proof to them. It's and sort of, you know, a reasserting that they've made the right decision to step down for this, because that basically they've got a better chance of winning by using, you know, the others than themselves.
Yeah. And that's something cool, because it's something you see throughout the episode, them gaining this confidence. Because like you said at first, it's just they're just having fun, and that's what they're doing. They're not trying to win. They're not trying to compete. They're just having fun. But when you go into that final match, yeah, they're still just trying to have fun. But it is still a really competitive match, and they're having a really hard time competing against the Appaloosa team. But then they follow, you know, kind of what Snails taught them in terms of not thinking about that and just trying to have a good time, not worrying about trying to win. No one, as Rainbow Dash and Applejack told them earlier, Ponyville is not going to care about that more than your well-being, and you're just having a good time. So they were able to still have fun while still gaining that self-confidence throughout that match that, you know, we actually have the skills to do this as well.
I just wanted Rainbow Dash to be in a cheerleader outfit during the match, though. That's the only disappointing thing.
Oh, there would have been tons of fan art and a ton of people freaking out at the same time.
I do like Pinky's hairdo for when she was playing sport. Like that was a nice touch.
Yeah.
She learned how to spin dash. That was so cute. That was just so cute. All of Fluttershy's kind of interactions with playing that playing the ball with the game and all the interactions with the ball were just hilariously cute. She's the new Tails. It's not as annoying.
Tails isn't annoying.
Tails won't stop speaking where Fluttershy won't start.
Oh God, I just hate the idea of there now being quite a lot of fan art between them two.
Okay, everyone, let's ship them. Let's ship Tails and Fluttershy. Let's go. Let's do it. Make it happen.
It probably already
I'm probably sure
several
it has.
times over.
I'm not gonna be tempted to Google search that right now.
Tim, really? she likes her balls.
He's not lying. She's a pretty good handler with those balls, man. She's a good ball handler.
The interesting thing is, it must be something that Andrea Libman spreads to her ponies is amazing amazing use of their tails. Because we've already seen the amazing things that Pinkie Pie can do.
I thought you were going somewhere else with that.
And now we've seen Fluttershy do amazing things with her tail as well now.
Yeah, we even see Pinkie Pie kind of nonchalantly bouncing the ball with her hair, like not even realizing it, like an idle animation.
Well, to be fair, Pinkie's sort of default move is basically bouncing around rather than walking.
Yeah, she's a skipper. Oh God.
Tails extensions. Why do I have a feeling that's going to be the name of the fan fiction?
It makes perfect. Print it. Come on. I expect that to be written by next week.
You know what? I'll do it. Fuck it. I'll then read it as a Dalek. There you go.
There we go. Say that for April next year.
God.
So, anything else with the with character discussion that anyone wants to discuss?
I suppose we should briefly say about Brayburn. Yeah, Brayburn was in this. Moving on.
He was there. He did Brayburn things.
It's a shame we didn't see a lot more of like the other ponies he had with him. I suppose it was, obviously time constraints was the big issue there.
I sort of, the one I really thought it was a McColt at first, because it really looked like one of the McColts in terms of the color and the height and design. And of course, the other one was freaking bulk biceps, body.
Yeah, one of bulk biceps relatives, obviously.
It is nice to see other ponies in the universe with that body type. So kind of becoming a little bit more diverse now with our body types, not just the standard stock one, but we got the tall ones like Fluttershy's brother or the other competitor on the Appaloosa team. We got the bulky ones, and we got that weird Woe Nelly one. Does that mean
we'll get more Woe Nelly?
Oh, I hope so. Oh my gosh. But yeah, it is nice seeing more diverse types in the character models. As the show goes on, they have more time to,
Is that legit her name?
Well, I mean, that's the fanon name. Was
all right? It's not her legit name.
Yeah, no, that she does not have a legit name. There was no legit. The name in the credits was just some generic, which
Fat pony.
No, it wasn't even. It
Generic fat pony.
It's just Buckball unicorn.
Oh.
I don't think she got I don't think she even and got to the credits because the only one who spoke was the unicorn on their team.
And that was the guy, voiced by the same guy that voices Brayburn.
Yeah. No, it wouldn't be Bulk's.
I said it was the
sorry.
same. No, it was Richard Cox who also did that.
Yeah, it wouldn't be Bulk's. We did see Bulk's grandma, I believe, in the Equestria Games episode. It was either mom or grandma, but there is a very Bulk pony in the crowd that looks either a mother or a grandma figure in the Equestria Games episode, of course, where Bulk was competing in.
You have a very interesting family, Tim.
Brayburn looks like an anime protagonist.
I could
does look like an anime protagonist.
I would
totally
watch a Brayburn anime.
Would it be We're All Gay for Brayburn?
Oh no. That would be implied though.
But this is an anime, so it would be obviously front and center and made to market the show.
It would be like a magical girl anime, but with Brayburn and more Brayburn. Okay.
Would it have Brayburn?
It might, maybe by the second season.
That'd be like having a My Little Pony show and only having ponies turn up, legitimately the second half of the third season.
Up until then, it was just strictly Griffins.
And dragons.
And dragons.
And changelings.
It was literally just 13 episodes of Spike talking to the camera.
You know what? I would watch that though. They could make that into like a web series where it's just like just Spike.
Deep Thoughts with Spike the Dragon.
Yeah. No, Spike the Dragon could like present an Equestria version of the Jerry Springer show.
Wait, with Spike as the host? I would totally fucking watch that.
He'd be one of the security people.
No.
Who would I have hosting it?
It would totally be Spike. Oh, come on, that would be great.
Who'd be the security guards then?
I don't know.
She could probably
some of the other dragons.
Princess Ember.
Yeah, there you
go. Or some of the dragons from there. Or Bulk Biceps. No, Bulk Biceps.
No, it's a pony. That's a pony. We can't have ponies until after 13 episodes.
Oh.
Maybe just a very Bulk Griffin.
Or Angel.
Crackle. There we go.
Crackle.
Yes, I love it.
God.
So voice acting, everyone. What's everyone have to say about voice acting in the show?
Well, Andrea Lidman and Ashley Ball just hit it out of the park as per usual.
That's one of the things I just absolutely found hilarious about this episode. The whole thing was pretty much Andrea versus Ashley because the four main characters are just voiced by two people. It's so funny having them as the characters for this episode.
And you had Andrea and Ashley basically talking to themselves for a number of scenes as well.
Pretty much. Just them two, and then every once in a while Snails chimes in. It really did have the smallest voice cast of the entire season, one of them. There's one other episode.
I think it might be one of the smallest ever in the show, to be brutally honest. I can't think of many episodes that have had less. I mean, there might be a season 1 episode here or a season 2 episode there, maybe. But
of course, back then they didn't credit the voice actors during it, so it's a little harder.
So it's difficult to know.
Yeah.
It's impossible to really know. I mean, unless you sort of watch the episodes and see which characters are in them, obviously. I mean,
yeah.
There's that way of doing it. But as far as I can sort of think, I can't think of there being many episodes that have had less voice actors than this.
Yeah.
I think this is as small. To be fair, I think this is as small as you could reasonably expect it to be for a show that's about friendship. I mean, technically you could possibly only have 2, maybe, but I think you'd be really pushing it.
Just have one person voice all the characters. There we go.
But to be fair, there are talented voice actors and actresses out there that could do that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, you had quite a few scenes in Futurama where Billy West would be talking to Billy West, who would then be talking to Billy West, and then have Billy West again.
This is the Billy West Show.
There was actually a show called that, I think.
Of course. Yeah. One of the other things, as always with any character that makes a return after a disappearance, I know a lot of people were thinking that Brayburn's voice actor changed again, but when his voice actor has always been Michael. There's a lot of confusion. I think because the first episode he was miscredited for that, so but I believe he's always voiced Brayburn. Just like when Luna always comes back, everyone's like, "Oh my God, did they change her voice actor?" You know, like they changed Luna's voice actor. Like they're really going to change like Tabitha not doing it anymore.
They
it's
did
like, what
though.
the fuck?
They changed her singing. They did change her singing.
Yeah, then they did throw the curveball where actually for once having someone different singing with her, but being that she only has sung one time before, not a huge, and that was just a very small part.
It was a song, yeah, and it was a song that she shared with two.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Huh. Yeah, if there's a female voice in the show that you don't know what it is, it's probably Tabitha. Especially if it's a weird voice.
Yeah.
Like a dog or something. It's probably Tabitha.
Yeah. Tabitha's kind of like the Tress MacNeille of this show, basically. If it's a female character in Futurama, it's voiced by Tress MacNeille. Not Tress, Tess even. Tess MacNeille.
I don't really think there's much more to talk about with that. I think they did a great job. I mean, Ashley and Andrea did a fantastic job as all the characters from Fluttershy's, yelling to just great back and forth dialogue that felt very natural and real. Rainbow Dash's over training in the training montage scene. They did a really good job. Not really much more to talk about because there's only 4 voice actors.
The only thing I will say is when Fluttershy is shouting, she does sound very similar to when Pinkie Pie is shouting.
Yeah, it's a little.
I wonder why.
Not really a surprise though.
It's like, Fluttershy, your Pinkie Pie is showing.
She does have it's a slightly different inflection in the tone of her voice, but it gets very, very similar.
Yeah.
Sort of like whenever Twilight starts yelling or gets excited, she sounds like Timmy Turner.
I was about to say, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But as talented as voice actors are, that is something that's gonna eventually happen. It's just one of those things. You can't help that. And to be fair, it's kind of fun to sort of spot the sort of, you think, if anything, if you didn't know anything about voice actors, you could like play the game of spot the characters that are voiced by the same voice actors, and it's still reasonably difficult to do, especially when you're not using like voices that are sort of out of range, if you know what I mean, in terms of like shouting or whatever.
There's really there's like 2 kinds of voice actors too. There's ones like that can do a lot of different voices, kind of based around their normal voice, like we have with Pinkie Pie and Fluttershy. It's all based around Andrea's voice, or the Applejack and Rainbow Dash get kind of different tone or different inflection or an accent added to make it sound different. And then there's voice actors that are more impersonators who can really change their voice to something sounding completely different. That will get. I mean, Tabitha's a little closer to that, or especially probably that would be the best example would be Maurice LaMarche, because he can do just so many things where it's completely
do Orson
different.
Welles so amazing.
And a lot of the actors on The Simpsons are really good at playing a lot of different characters. Where
Billy West is a
and
good
stuff,
or
Billy West, yeah. So there's kind of 2 kinds. There's ones that they can do a lot of different voices, but it's based around their voice, and there's the impersonators who can do good impersonations or really change their voice to just something completely different.
The granddaddy of that is Mel Blanc,
of course, yeah, like literally. Sassafras, that's such a great word. Anything else for voice acting? Okay.
I really can't think of anything in particular.
So, not as much in this category as last week. This episode was a lot more character discussion and story discussion heavy. So last week obviously was a very humor discussion heavy episode, but there's still a little bit of humor here. So what does everyone have to say about this episode's humor?
Let's see. We've had a lot. Well, not really a whole heck of a lot, but let's see.
The one that sticks out to me is after Fluttershy obviously shouts off, and obviously her and Pinkie Pie run out the room. You have you then have Snails pipe up and say, if it really matters, I'm still good to do this.
Yeah.
Snails doesn't give no crap about your drama. I'm still good.
You see, this is the kind of person we want on the. We want people like Snails on the internet. Don't give a shit about the drama.
Let's say just his advice on dealing with the pregame moves is just seriously, I don't think about anything ever.
Yeah, this episode needed less Buckball and more Rareball. I agree.
Let's say we've already gone over Fluttershy's over the top angry faces. I mean, she's just a clear winner for face of the episode here.
Which is funny considering it's normally Rainbow Dash that gets the best faces.
Speaking of faces and everything, Derpy's cameo in when everyone was heading off to Appaloosa, like right there at the train station. I mean, everyone was wearing like face paint and various colors, jerseys of like certain blue. But Derpy's wearing this giant Dr. Seuss-esque hat, and she, instead of like looking like she's just painted her face, she looks like she just dunked her entire head in the paint bucket. And say then we have during the practice round in Appaloosa, we have Fluttershy of all ponies smack talking Rainbow Dash and Applejack. And then we've got the montage of the unicorns trying out for the Buckball team. One of them actually being distracted by putting on makeup in the middle of the game. Another spinning her bucket fast enough that she just actually gets dizzy and nearly hurls.
I really like at the beginning where they're kind of Rainbow Dash is introducing Fluttershy and Pinkie Pie to the concept of Buckballs, and kind of says we need to find a unicorn, and Pinkie Pie's like they know we're not unicorns, right? I really like that. That was a good delivery from Andrea there.
To say there was actually a couple of minor bloopers if you kept a good eye out. About shortly after 12 minutes in, you'll notice that Snail's horn's missing. And then when they're all boarding the train to Appaloosa, they're all supposed to be wearing the Ponyville Buckball team shirt, but Snails is actually wearing the red practice shirt later on instead while they're leaving.
He's just a little slow changing out of it, that's all.
Yeah. But not really much else I can really think of. Well, Applejack bucking the apple out of the tree at the beginning of the episode. She proceeds to kick it in dramatic slow-mo. But then Rainbow Dash interrupts her, which causes her to just spin totally wildly, like she's spin dashing in air and missing the apple by a country mile.
So, with animation, we kind of already hit on a couple things with the animation and visuals. I did really like seeing the all the Appaloosa designs, of all the ponies from Appaloosa in the stands. There's nice, some really nice designs in there just for some ponies that are just kind of put there in the background. And of course, we see a lot of the Appaloosa ponies that we've seen in previous Appaloosa episodes as well. So it was nice seeing all of that in the stands.
Speaking of animation, did you notice like the sort of 3D effects when Applejack and Rainbow Dash were walking in the train?
No. I guess I'm gonna say that because I know I didn't notice that.
Take a look if you watch the episode again. Take a look, especially at the seat railings at the bottom. The 3D effect kind of stands out, and it doesn't really look all that great. But that's the only real thing I can really point out. Oh, by the way, speaking of animation, I suppose this is another blooper here, but I'm going to post this in the chat room. Derpy was there seeing the people off over at she was seeing the players off to Appaloosa, but then she somehow manages to be seen in the crowd at Appaloosa attending the game. So it's like either she caught
I think
later
Lyra and
train.
Bonbon too, because I think Lyra and Bonbon were at the station.
But I would have thought they would have got there before the before. It's more than likely that obviously Applejack and them obviously got there probably in advance. Otherwise they wouldn't have had the time to do the practice match, would they? So you can make it seem to fit in and make logical sense.
Yeah, it might have been like a secondary train. Like the first one was for the competitors, but then some of the spectators caught the next train. And of course, Applejack and all of them all kind of went through that whole training thing off to the side that kind of spent some time, so they didn't get there right early. Yeah, there's Bonbon. It was nice seeing more Lyra Bonbon as well in the stands, but with their faces painted.
Basically shipping the couple.
Well, that's a canon ship now, sir.
Honestly, if they did have them kissing and that, I really wouldn't care.
The only reason it would feel off is it's just not something this show really does.
I mean, even the couples that they do have, like the cakes and that, they're not seen being overtly affectionate.
Yeah, I mean,
they love each other, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't see shining armor intimidating Cadence or anything, so.
Yeah, we didn't see tongues.
Oh, I did like seeing the Cookie Pony again at the tryouts. I like the Cookie Pony is slowly becoming my favorite background character. I like her mane. Of course, it was funny seeing her kind of get really dizzy and almost throw up as well. She ate too many cookies before practice, probably.
Is her favorite character Cookie Monster?
Sure.
I now would like to see her eat cookies like Cookie Monster. Could you imagine Fluttershy eating like that?
Actually, yes, I could. I actually totally could.
Anything? Also, I guess anything else for the animation and visuals? Maybe. Nope. Okay, so yeah, there she is. Look how determined she is. Best background pony right there. I just really like her. I like her wavy hair. Okay. So next part is the score and the backing music. So it's a little lighter, not as much to talk about with the score and backing music of this episode. This is kind of normal for these lighter character episodes, especially in comparing to the kind of past 3 or more episodes where they've been a lot more action or had a lot more. Last episode we had all of the score for the Dungeons and Dragons type game that we had in that. So we had a lot of the epic score for that. The episode before that, we had the Changeling episode that had a lot of very adventurous, very emotional score. And of course, the episode before that, we had the song and a lot of score around that. So this is a lot more simpler episode with the score. So not as much here, but we can kind of go through a few things. This episode did have a lot of themes that made reappearances that we hadn't heard for a little bit. So I'll point those out. Let me just get to the first track here. Trying to remember what's in each of these tracks. This is the first track where they're kind of talking to showing everyone kind of what Buckball is. So we start with one of Applejack's things as she talks. So yeah, that one had a lot of Applejack kind of motifs in, especially at the beginning and the end there. The next one here is from the tryouts when they're trying when all the ponies are trying out. I believe the second half of this one has one of the themes that we heard in the season opener. I believe this is the track that has the Flurry Heart theme in it. So we have that kind of like whimsical score from the opener this season for Flurry Heart when she's kind of going around causing havoc, and that's used for the montage in this tryout scene where they're not having the best of luck finding good unicorns to play. So you'll hear that, I believe, in the second half of this track. Oh yeah, and the beginning of this is like one of the standard high, fast-paced kind of what's the word I'm looking for? It's used a lot for episodes where characters are moving really fast, especially in like a sports theme, like in the Equestria games. So this is something we've heard a lot in the series before, and we'll hear this again in the episode. Yeah, pretty much. It was a little later in the track than I thought it was, but yeah, at the end there, that was the score that was used for Flurry Heart's antics in the season premiere this season. So the next track is the biggest track and best track of the episode, definitely the most noteworthy, and that's the training montage music. So this is the first episode that's had a training montage, I think, since season 4's Rainbow Falls. I can't remember. We had montages since there, but not like a training montage. So much like that episode and Hurricane Fluttershy, we get this very guitar-heavy, kind of rocky-ass, very pumped-up training music that's really awesome. It starts out really cool. The second half is really awesome because it's something you can't really hear when you're watching it in the episode because it's drowned out a lot by sound effects and dialogue. But it brings in some nice like 80s synthesizer like you would hear in a lot of these training montage from films in the 80s. So this one is definitely the most enjoyable to listen to, so I'll just go ahead and play it. Here come the synths. So yeah, I really love montage scenes because they normally give the you normally give William Anderson a little freedom to be a little more wild and complete with the score rather than working around dialogue or anything like that. So yeah. I think I said Hurricane Fluttershy. It was that Hurricane Fluttershy and Rainbow Falls are like the two main episodes where we had a very distinct training montage in it. This one here, the sound of it, I believe, is a lot closer to the montage in Hurricane Fluttershy versus Rainbow Falls. Rainbow Falls had a little bit more, I think, orchestral one. I forget exactly what it was. I'd have to listen to it again. But that one was a little bit different in its sound. Yeah, this is really spacey synths I really like in the second part of that montage, and it's something you really couldn't hear as clearly in the episode. So it's nice that you could kind of hear it a little more clear here.
Go subscribe to Rain Shadow's YouTube now, so you can listen to all of this stuff properly.
It wasn't the same music as Hurricane Fluttershy, but it's very similar in the style and instrumentation of it. Okay, so the next one we have a couple more themes. One of them, I believe, is Pinkie Pie. One of Pinkie Pie's kind of moral lesson themes that we've heard for her in past episodes, such as I believe we heard this one at the first and the end of Too Many Pinkie Pies in season 3, and we heard it again in the Maud Pie episode in season 4 for her. And then there's another theme, which I forget which one it was, so I'll have to listen to it first and then I'll remember. So. Yeah, just like a little bit. It was a little bit of one of Fluttershy's motifs there. So yeah, it's just Fluttershy. That's the only reason.
Best motif.
So this next one's really short. This is just the score from when the train is just leaving from the station. It was cool sounding. I think it's new. It's not something that's been reused. So. So then we get to the freak out music for Fluttershy, and this is also followed up by the more emotional score from afterwards when Applejack and Rainbow Dash are talking to them. I forget there is something at the end of this one. I forget what it is. So we'll start out here with the Fluttershy's little outburst. Yeah, was that part at the end there? That's a motif that we've heard past this season and last season a few times as well. So the next one is from the final. What was this? It's from the final practices. This next one, so it's this one's from when Fluttershy and Pinkie Pie are kind of having that final practice for what they think is to give AJ and Dash a little warm up. So this one is accompanying that. I believe the first half of this is again that same theme we heard before in the tryout stage, and that we hear again later in the episode during the actual match. After that, it actually goes to another theme as we kind of have a little montage of them practicing. This is the second time this particular theme's been used. It was first used and last used at the end of Make New Friends But Keep Discord in Season 5. At the very end of that, when Celestia is talking to Twilight about it, it's the most fun gala that they've had in years. So it was used to end that episode, so that ends this scene here. And here's that score. Kind of has a similar kind of feel to the MOP theme for it. I really like that track from the end of Make New Friends But Keep Discord. It's a little bit extended here too, which is nice. So it's nice hearing that one here again. So we're getting to the last couple tracks here. This one here is, I believe, just before the final match there. It starts off with a flute score that has some woodblock in the back of it. We previously heard this track in Applejack's Day Off this season, somewhere near the end of that episode, and then it shifts to one of Fluttershy's motifs, which we've heard in a lot of her past episodes, like especially in season 4, in the It Ain't Easy Being Breezy's episode. Somewhere in the middle of that episode, we heard that. So those are the two motifs in this next track. This is Fluttershy's theme here. And finally, we get to the final track of the episode that concludes the episodes, this one uses one of Applejack's banjo lesson motifs that we've heard in the series before. It was used first in season 4's Pinky Apple Pie, when Applejack is kind of saying that Pinky is like a true apple, and that closer to the end of that episode. And we've also heard it in other other AJ episodes that season, such as Leap of Faith and Some Pony to Watch Over Me. And it's kind of like the lesson motif that goes in the background of her explaining a lesson or learning a lesson. And so that kind of builds up there and ends off the episode. So that's Apple lessons. So it's kind of cool. One of the things I'm trying to do, which hopefully I get some time to, because I started it then I kind of stopped, is I wanted to kind of build like a spreadsheet of all the different themes that are reused throughout the series, because there's a lot of themes that they get so lost because there's so many now with the show going on 6 seasons. But there's a lot of ones that you miss really easily, and a lot of them is these lesson motifs like that one, where you will hear the same lesson motif used for the different characters when they're either teaching or learning a lesson. So like this one, we have Applejacks and Rarity. Rarity will have her own. Fluttershy will have her own that are used in their own episodes. So it's kind of cool to look, and there's just so many. Sometimes it's hard to spot the trends that happen when they're being reused, especially with the lesson ones, because there's a lot of lesson themes throughout the entire series. So, so it's kind of a cool thing to listen to. But that one is definitely one of Applejack's ones. So we hear that in a lot of her episodes. And that's it. So that's it for the score. So kind of coming to the end here of the show here. What does everyone think about this episode's theme and moral?
Don't push the shit that makes you work best on other people if it doesn't make them work best.
Yeah, some people thrive under pressure, others don't.
It all comes down to that middle central theme that reigns through all of us. Don't be a dick.
Say, winning a game shouldn't come at the expense of having fun playing it. And never order a pizza without sauce on it. Hot diggity damn.
Yeah.
Pizzas without sauces are good if you're actually specifically, because they usually have different things on them
That's true.
to make them taste different. But like an actual regular pizza without the sauce is like no. Why? How would you even? Why would you even have that as an option? Yeah. Pretty much, this episode's all about how everyone enjoys sports in different ways, or you can apply that to really anything in life. But this episode specifically, with sports. So, and everyone has different ways of playing and competing, and different levels of involvement with sports. You have maybe people who are diehard sports fans, and people that maybe only are casual. And then also related to that, some people can thrive under pressure, and some thrive more in a relaxed or fun environment. So those are kind of like the two main themes of this one. Yep, it's perfectly reasonable to have fun with that dick.
Yeah.
I had fun with that fan.
Dear God.
Someone
Mental
please.
images.
Someone needs to please go write a ship fic with Matt and his penis fan.
Oh.
We'll read it in CQ after dark.
I was going to say you're going to read that for seasons. I have to sit there and suffer through it.
Yes.
Have a face cam and just see how much I cringe.
you would cringe so much that it would just be like an anomaly, like a black hole would just form and your face would collapse in on
so
itself.
much I have a heart attack.
Yeah, I mean, there's people that are competitive and there's people that are more casual. I mean, that can apply to video games or a lot of things in life. So there's nothing wrong with how you enjoy it, but you got to be careful because if you're trying to encourage someone in something and they're not really into that whole competitive, you might turn them off of it.
Oh my! I have said so many times, and not this is mainly outside of Triple E, but there is no wrong way to enjoy something. Be it games, be it anything, and then they're just like, why? Why do you have to be like, no, this is not how you enjoy it? Like, no, dude, step off.
You hear that, Undertale fans?
There's nothing wrong with taking something seriously. It's just a case of everything in moderation. It's kind of sort of the best way.
Yep. So, favorite parts of the episode? Any concerns for the episode?
Fluttershy blowing up was nice to see.
Yeah.
Yep, R.I.P. Fluttershy.
So was every time Fluttershy was on. So it was like most of the episode. So
Matt's favorite part is Fluttershy, but that's like his favorite part of every episode, even if she's not in it.
yeah.
Yeah. All those facial expressions when she blew up, that was great.
I will say I think my two favorite parts would be again the handling of the second half of the episode and where they took the story and the characters in terms of how Fluttershy and Pinky reacted and how Applejack and Rainbow Dash reacted and went out of their way, as well as just them giving up their positions in the first place to them, were really cool. This episode had some really great character expansion, development, and character moments for them. And then, of course, just Snails in the episode. Just having someone like Snails come into this episode and have a major part where he's actually competent in something and not just being used as a joke or anything. It was just something I was completely not expecting from this episode. So it was nice to see it was handled, and more importantly, it was handled really well. And they didn't totally 180 his character or anything like that. They kept it within his character, but added some nice new dimension to it.
They don't need to one-up Fluttershy. She's already his best character, so yeah.
If you're wondering what Matt the Shadow Man's penis fan is exactly what you think it is.
Yes, I have a fan club just for my peanut.
And if you stop by CQ more often, you get to hear more wonderful, hilarious things like the penis fan.
You get to hear my amazing British accent.
It's pretty British. It's like 7 out of 10 British.
Everything.
Yeah, I really like that bowl handling from Fluttershy.
I'm using the picture.
Oh God, we're not going to be able to monetize this video now because YouTube, we're talking too dirty.
When do we ever?
Yeah, not that we do
So
anyway.
have we ever monetized our videos?
No. Not that we would really be able to anyway. Oh, okay, next slide.
I don't like the idea of someone's opinion being worth more than other people's, and if you try and put a monetary value to that, it's kind of
Yeah,
I think it's kind of
it's one of the problems because then you start being more concerned about being entertaining or being bringing that sweet dollar in than actually trying to give a good review.
Gotta have my clickbait.
So what are everyone's what was I doing? I overall feelings. What's overall feelings on the episode? Any final conclusions? Final thoughts?
I feel fine.
It was a decent episode. I like it. A+, thumbs up.
Yeah, it was a good episode. I mean, it's not the best of the season, but it was really great, and especially as a first romp for another new writer this season. I just can't believe that we keep getting thrown all these new writers this season. They're doing really well, and I'm excited about hopefully the future of the show with them writing more, because they've done a good job.
But Ryan, they keep saying over and over again that season 6 is going to be the last.
6 seasons in a movie.
Hey, most shows would love to have that much.
I'm kind of curious as to when we will hear any news on a future season. Like if they're really just going to wait till after the movie and not really announce anything till after that, to not take away from that, or if they're going to try and do something before.
If they do.
I mean, with how the movie is timed and how the seasons have been timed, if season 7 follows the pattern of the past 2 seasons in terms of when it premieres, when it ends, it'll end right around the time when the movie premieres if they adjust it a little bit differently at the end. So could be nice.
Unless what they do is they split season 7 into 2 and just have like the first half sort of, earlier in the year, have the movie and then have the rest of season 7 after.
But Matt, season 3 sucked so much.
Well, no, it'd still be all season 7. It'll all be produced together. It'll just be shown differently.
I have a hard time believing there won't be more, just because toys and money, and it's one of their top brands, and it seems like we're getting to the point where production has to be progressing at some point if there's another season, and they definitely seem to be still fairly active in terms of their involvement in doing stuff. So
this sounds like an end of season 6 to us.
Well, by then we might actually know. I'm assuming that something will be announced either way before the end of the season or around that time.
Don't assume. Assuming makes an ass out of you.
I'm already an ass. I don't give a crap.
I don't know. Doesn't that defeat the point of being an ass?
There's a point. There's a point to being an ass. I just do it for the shits and giggles.
Well, you can ride on donkeys.
Oh yeah. I mean, I guess that's true. They're pretty good. Cranky's pretty good. Well, but yeah, overall, it was a good episode. A solid episode. Great, nice character episode. It was nice to having a little simpler episode after the last couple of more intense ones that we've had. So. Yeah, and Snails.
I'd have liked to have seen Discord cheering on Fluttershy. That'd have been fun to watch.
Well, anyway, I think that about concludes it here. So thank you so much for joining us for this week's Equine Episode Examination. Remember, if you're watching a recording of this, we record this live every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So if you want to stop on by, you can actually come into the chat and say your opinions rather than just thinking them in your head and saying, I disagree or I agree. So this weekend, we have a CMC episode of The Fault in Our Cutie Marks.
Finally.
And so yeah, this was the episode that was supposed to be earlier in the season and got pushed back for whatever reason. I guess maybe we'll see why. Maybe it's just going to be forever a mystery. But that's premiering this weekend, Saturday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So stop on by here and chat along with us during the episode, and then make sure to stop on by next Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time when we'll discuss everything that's going to happen in that episode. Definitely interesting having another episode with CMC and an episode that seems to be involving Cutie Marks in some fashion. And after last season and their episode earlier this season, kind of interesting to see where they're going to go with them as a team and as a Crusader team. So this is kind of going to be really our first episode of that, it seems, just given by the title going forward. So definitely probably going to be a lot to discuss with that. And yeah, I believe Matt mentioned it earlier, so I'll say that, yeah, this one is written by Oh God. And then my mind goes blank as soon
Ed
as I say
Valentine.
Ed Valentine, yeah, who of course has written a lot of CMC episodes. He wrote the previous one, Cart Before the Pony, this season, and of course he wrote Flight to the Finish in all the way back in season 4. So definitely interesting to see what he brings to the table this weekend. So with that, thanks for joining us.
Chicken.
Huh?
He just likes writing for chickens.
He's a big fan of the chicken. So yeah, thanks for joining us this week for Triple E.